Winning last year's Hacker Cup was a great honor. The competition is definitely a very high standard. It's always very tough. I'm looking forward to defending my title. Bring it on.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 Facebook Hacker Cup. We've got a terrific scoreboard to reveal to you guys today. But before we start, I'm David Harmeyer. I'm your host. Many of you may know me as Second Thread, and I'm joined by the wonderful and terrific co-commentator, Zeph Rosenberg. Zeph, are you excited to be here today or what?
David, I am so excited to be here. The reveal is going to be incredible.
We're going to jump to the scoreboard reveal in just a few minutes here, but before we start, Zeph, do you want to give a few words about what it's like to work for Facebook?
Yeah, I've been at Facebook now for almost 10 years. Get to solve some of the most difficult problems, both sort of in terms of how we scale our systems to support billions of users, but also how we build products to help bring them together. A lot of fun problems to solve.
For sure. And a lot of the problems that you'll see in the contest today are actually inspired by things we've seen in real life working at Facebook and elsewhere. And if solving problems is the kind of thing that you really enjoy and you take pride in, you should definitely apply to work at Facebook. We would love to have you, and it would be like a great work environment. We think that you'd really enjoy it and you'd fit in well here. So without further ado, we can start talking about the contest today. So Zeph, do you want to give us a quick rundown of what Facebook Hacker Cup is for those of us who maybe aren't too familiar or joining us for the first time here?
Yeah, absolutely. So Facebook Hacker Cup is a coding competition made up of a number of rounds, starting with our online qualification round, where anybody who submits a correct answer to any of our problems moves on to the next round. We progressively move through smaller and smaller sets of competitors until we get to the 25 finalists that we have today. In past years, we've done this competition, the final competition on site at a Facebook office. Of course, everyone is remote. Still, we're doing our remote finals for the second year in a row, though I hope we'll be back in an office soon.
So like Zeph mentioned, we have 25 finalists, which you see here. But this competition started with many more than 25 contestants. In fact, in the qualification round, we had over 16,000 programmers all competing on the problems there. And they got slowly filtered out round by round. Eventually, these are the 25 remaining contestants. Of these 25, just to give some context here, over 80% of them are legendary grandmasters on Codeforces. That's insanely impressive and just speaks to the massive level of talent that you see in all of these competitors today. All right, so without further ado, I think it might be time to go to the scoreboard. So what you'll see here is all of the submissions that our contestants have made over the 4-hour contest they just competed in. The contestants have made submissions to various problems. They're free to do the problems in any order that they want, but they don't know whether their submissions were right or wrong, which is why you see all of these question marks. There are a couple caveats there. We do see a couple X's. Zeph, would you like to explain what those X's mean?
Yeah, the X's are presentation errors. So where the format of the submission doesn't even match what we expect, and so we mark those as incorrect right away.
Yeah, so other than that, other than those X's, none of the contestants know whether any of their submissions are correct or not. So we're going to reveal those one by one, starting from the bottom and progressively going through the scoreboard. So without further ado, here you go, Zeph.
Yeah, and here we have Sung Wang's submission to problem A. That's correct. You'll see he'll move up into first place for now, although many more submissions to go. Now Nikolai's submission to problem A as well. And that's correct. A few minutes faster, so Nikolai will move into first place. And now Igor, again, we're seeing many submissions to problem A to start, maybe a theme throughout the rest of the contest. Igor submitted it just 3 minutes faster, so he'll move into first place. And now Peter, seen Peter as a champion a number of times before. Correct, not unexpected, in 30 minutes, a very fast submission. Now Marek's submission to problem A, also correct. And so 10 points there, 31 minutes, just a few seconds slower, and Marek moves into second place.
We're seeing lots of submissions for problem A here. It seems like lots of contestants wanted to start on it. Do you want to explain why that might be a smart idea in this contest, Zeph?
Yeah, so as you can see here, score is the number one tiebreaker, so the competitor with the most points wins. But the tiebreaker after that, we have a number of ties so far. Everyone has 10 points, and the top 5 is the time penalty. And so if you see a problem that you know how to solve quickly, doing it as soon as possible is a huge advantage.
Absolutely, for sure.
So we can move on. We have our first submission out of problem B with Kento. That's correct. You'll see 16 points here, so even at a slower time, Kento will move into first place. And now looking at Oscar's submission to problem A. That's correct. How far up will he go? Into 7th place. Another submission to problem B from Mihao. Magic. Incorrect. So we have our first submitted incorrect solution. David, back over to you.
So yeah, this is the first incorrect submission that we've seen so far, and it's to problem B, which was the first problem that Magic was working on. Do you think this is going to be an issue for him as far as placing well on the scoreboard goes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's devastating to get any problem wrong in the finals, but especially when you have so many problems tied at 16 points, getting one submission wrong basically sets you back in the time penalty. So any further submission to a 16-point problem is basically as if you were 30 or 45 minutes delayed.
For sure, yeah, especially when it's your first one too, because then it means like all the problems that you solve after that, they have an additional 30-minute penalty points because you waited 30 minutes to start on them. So yeah, that's definitely an unfortunate mistake to make for sure. All right, so back to you, Zeph, with the reveal for problem D.
Yeah, we'll see if Mihao can redeem themselves. That is correct on problem D. 16 points into second place for Mihao. Now back to another submission to problem A. Minri, that's correct. We'll move up into 5th place. Another submission to problem A for Heltion. Ooh, incorrect to problem A. That's our first incorrect submission to problem A. Let's look at problem B now. Oh, incorrect again to problem B. So we'll see the final submission for Heltion. Problem D, also incorrect. That's a pretty rough time. Let's see our next submission, problem A. Anta, that's correct. So Anta will move up. We'll see more submissions from them later on. Now Kohei. How did Kohei do? Kohei is correct. So Kohei will move up. Now Gennady has won multiple times before. We all know Tourist. Not super surprising. Tourist moves up, and we see a little bit of a darker color there. David, you want to fill us in?
Yes, you'll know this check mark is actually a much darker green than the rest of them. And that's because Tourist was actually the first person to solve this problem. So it was known as the dark green of the problem because he's the first one to turn it green. But also, it turns out this is actually the first problem solved in the entire contest. So you'll see other dark greens for other problems, but this is in some sense the darkest of the greens because it was the first dark green. So we like to call it the dark green. All right, back to you, Zeph.
Not surprising from Tourist, and now Mateusz. Mateusz also correct on problem A. Mateusz has been in the finals before. Now Yuhao. How did Yuhao do on problem A? That's correct. Yuhao will move up as well. 24:54, just 40 seconds slower than Gennady. And now Mola Mola, also correct on problem A. So seeing a bunch of correct submissions to problem A. Can maybe guess that was the easiest problem in the competition. David, what do you think?
We're seeing lots of submits for problem A, so I think it might be a good time to talk about what problem A is here. So problem A was called and in this problem you have two different columns of numbers written in binary. In the left column you've got a bunch of numbers, in the right column you have a bunch of numbers, and you're allowed to take k pairs of numbers and switch which one's on the left for which one's on the right. After you do that, you want to maximize the sum of the and of the left numbers and the and of the right numbers. So that's the idea. The reasoning behind this problem, why we have a problem called and in the set, which is maybe a little bit of a boring name, is that all of these problems were actually mining themed. And a very common thing in mines is ores. You're mining for ores. So as opposed to ores, we have a problem about ands, which is kind of the opposite. All right, back to you, Zeph, with the scoreboard.
That's a great theme, David, and we'll look at Chin Chi's submission to problem A. That's correct. So another correct solution to and now Riku. We've seen Riku a couple of times before. How will Riku do? That's correct on problem A. Now Heno 239. That's correct. Again, we're seeing some pretty fantastic times for our first submission. And now Zixiang, duality. That's correct for Zixiang. Many more submissions for most of these competitors, so we'll come back. And now we see another submission to problem D from Jae-hyun. That's correct. How far up will it take Jae-hyun? Into first place for the time being, although we may see some changes going forward. Andrew. How did Andrew do? Andrew was correct on problem A as well. And now Jiang. Jiang is correct on problem A. We have a number of competitors with a whole bunch of submissions, have a lot more excitement to go. Alex was correct on problem A. Now moving over to problem B's submissions, Oscar, incorrect on problem B. We saw a correct submission on problem A. Let's look at their submission to problem D. That's correct. Oscar will move up into first place for the time being, but no more submissions from Oscar. So a bunch of folks will be looking to overtake him.
Yeah, I guess for now, we'll start looking at maybe some of the submissions to problem D might be a bit more common. We've got Yusopo on problem D. Does he get it? No, looks like a wrong answer. He has more submits, though, one from B. B is a very tricky problem. We're seeing lots of wrong answers from different contestants. Unfortunately, Yusopo gets a wrong answer as well. We've got Igor from Germany. Igor's been in lots of contests in the past. Unfortunately, it looks like B gets the better of him as well. We have D from Subconscious. And he gets it. Well done. Moving all the way up. Fantastic penalty for 26 points into first place. Maroon Arcade from Japan. And Maroon manages to squeak by with the dark green on problem B. Congratulations, Maroon. Next, we've got Umnik. On problem D, he gets it as well. Up to 26 points, straight into first place. Nice job, Umnik. S-Quark on problem B. Another wrong answer. And then we've got another submit to problem D, also from S-Quark. That seems to be correct. Well done. And I think with that, we might want to talk about what problem D was. So in all of the contests that we've had this year for Facebook Hacker Cup, we've had at least one problem based on a tree. In computer science, a tree is a special type of graph. For example, a city that has n nodes and n-1, or n different cities and n-1 roads between them. Now, this problem was also about a tree. You have, again, n cities and n-1 roads. But this tree is about different trees that are located in each city. So you've got one tree in each city, and you want to collect a certain number of ornaments, and you're interested in how many times you need to teleport from one city to another in order to be able to do this, where you're allowed to walk between cities in a certain way. This used a fairly common Yusako trick, but was a little bit difficult to spot. And since all of these competitors are very talented, a lot of them are familiar with this trick, which is called Alien Trick. All right, back to the scoreboard here, and we can continue with Zeph giving us some more commentary on it.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, another submission to problem D for Jiang. That's correct. We have a darker green there. Congratulations to Jiang. Now moving on to Inta. Inta had a submission to problem B this time. Ooh, incorrect. A bunch of incorrect submissions on problem B so far. Let's see their submission to problem D. That's correct. So Inta will move up into, looks like, 5th place. And now Mateusz, Radusz. That's correct. And we'll have another submission from Radusz, so a chance to go into first place. Now let's look at Heno. Heno is correct. Another submission from them as well. So we've got a bunch of folks with good chances here. Now Marek, his final submission. That's correct. A really fantastic time penalty so far will take Marek into 2nd place. Now looking at Andrew. And Andrew has one of our submissions for problem F, so this could get very exciting. That's correct for Andrew on problem D, moving him into 2nd place. And now Peter, our former champion, downloaded problem F, but didn't get a chance to submit, but is correct on problem D, and that will move Peter up. Now looking at Mola Mola. 2 submissions left for them. Correct on problem D, so we'll see their last submission in a little bit. Now Zixiang, problem D as well. That's correct. One more submission from them. Now Yu Hao. Yu Hao is correct on problem D. They have one of our few submissions to problem E, so we'll definitely be back there. Now Gennady, tourist, our former champion. How will he do on problem B? That's correct. Not very surprising, and Gennady will move up. Now Mihao with our final submission of the contest to problem A. Ooh, incorrect. 2 incorrect submissions for Mihao so far. Let's see if Kento, Snoop can move up in their last submission. That's correct, and Kento will move up. How far? Into first place for the time being. Very excited. Now Jae-hyun, problem B. Incorrect on problem B, so their final chance will be on problem E, but let's take a pause here.
So one of the things which, if you're a competitive programmer, you might have heard of, is something called a perfect set. And a perfect set is what problem writers try and strive for when they write a contest. In particular, there are 3 main requirements to a perfect set. The first one is that everyone attempts at least one problem. You want to make one problem that at least appears attemptable. And we've got that happened here. Everyone has submitted on at least one problem. The second requirement for a perfect set is that all problems end up getting solved. So we don't yet know whether this set is going to end up being a perfect set, but we do have submissions to all of the problems. And we're going to see here, this is our first submission to problem E, so this might make it possible if we're able to get contestants to solve E, F, and C as well. And the final requirement for a perfect set is that no one solves all problems. Now, it turns out this year's set was hard enough that no one's even submitted to all of the problems, so we shouldn't be too worried about that case for this one, but we want to see if every problem is able to solve it by at least one contestant. That's what we're going for here. All right, back to you, Zeph, with the final submission from Kusaga on problem E, which we haven't seen an AC on yet.
Let's see if we can get a correct submission from Jae-hyun. We do. Looking good so far. Very exciting. We'll see that submission to problem C in a little bit, but how about now Mingri? Incorrect for Mingri, so we're going to move up into 14th place. Let's see if Gennady got their last submission correct. They did. Again, not the most surprising. Gennady will be in first place for the time being, but still many challengers. How about Riku to problem D?
Let's pause for just a minute. Sorry to leave you on a cliffhanger here, Zeph, but we'll talk about problem E real quick because we have quite a few problems to discuss before we get to the end. Problem E was a very difficult problem to get right. The judges, when they were making it, we ended up getting 19 wrong submissions in total until we finally matched our brute forcer. So it's a very tricky problem to get. But the problem E is called antisocial. And the idea behind the problem is you are a employee at a wonderful and terrific company called Metal Platforms. They're a mining company. And you have lots of very friendly coworkers, and the coworkers work around you, and you like interacting with them. But today you're feeling particularly antisocial. You want to stay away from people, but you still want your free ice cream. So you want to find the way of getting from your desk, which is located at some particular point, to the unlimited free ice cream at some other point, while maximizing the distance that you get to the closest other person. Hopefully that makes sense. We have a nice picture of it over here as well in the background if you take a look at that. All right, sounds good. So back to, oh yeah, right here as well. Fantastic. Problem E, antisocial. Awesome. So then back to you, Zeph, for the final solution from Maroon K on problem D.
Yeah, very tense moment there for Riku, waiting to see. Of course, that's correct, and Riku will move up into first place. That was their final submission. Now, Heno239, we're getting very close to the end here. Heno is correct, move up into first place, but no more submissions from Heno. Now let's look at Mola Mola. Their final submission, incorrect. Now Zixiang, how did Zixiang do on problem B? Incorrect as well, so a couple of very tense incorrect submissions. Now Alex with problem F. Alex is correct, and Alex will move up into first place. That's our first correct submission to problem F. We're still looking for problem C for a perfect set. David, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling terrific. This is turning out to be an incredibly exciting scoreboard, and I think part of that was the fact that problems B, C, D, and E all have the same point value. So contestants are really encouraged to go for whichever set of those problems they are most comfortable with, and different contestants with different skills, even if the problems are of similar overall difficulty, might choose different subsets of the problems, whichever they're interested in. Also, we've seen our first correct submission to problem F, so let's talk about what that problem was. This problem had a really funny picture. You'll see it in just a minute here. And the idea behind the problem is you have a bunch of programming contestants who are upset at their wrong answers. So they have all of these tables, and they're going to flip their tables over, and every programmer is going to flip their table in some direction. But the programmers don't want to cause trouble for each other, so they want to see if there's a way for them to flip the tables where no table ends up landing on somebody else's table. Of course, since the tables move when they get flipped, it makes it a bit difficult to calculate. And also, unlike in this contest, which only has 25 contestants, in this table flipping problem, you can have a very, very large number of tables, which means your solution has to be incredibly efficient. All right, back to you, Zeph. We've got APAD here revealing his submission to problem E back on the scoreboard.
Here we have the scoreboard coming up. Problem E, of course, we already have a correct submission to problem E. Let's see if we can get 2. Ooh, incorrect on problem E. So we're about to go and see if we have a correct submission to problem C, which, David, I think would give us a perfect set. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. If we get this problem C, that would indeed be a perfect set. But I think this is the top 10 contestants, what we have remaining. So each of these contestants managed to get in the top 10. They did a terrific job getting here. We'll reveal the order in just a moment, but let's pause and just take a minute here to recognize how impressive this was. We had 16,000 contestants start in the qualification round. And to make it even to the finals is insanely impressive. But to make it to the top 10 of the finals, beat out over half of these competitors, 80% of whom are legendary grandmasters. This is just a terrific achievement. So congratulations to everyone who is able to make it even this far. All right, let's jump back to the scoreboard and reveal the order of these top 10 finalists, starting with Raidwush. Zeph, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, let's see if we've got that perfect set. Raidwush, how did you do? Correct. We do have a perfect set. Very exciting. Now, Andrew's final submission, problem F. Will this move him up? It will as well. Very exciting. Andrew's in first place right now. Still a couple of submissions left. Jiang, correct on problem B, moving into third place. And should we take a pause here? Because I think we have a couple more finalists set now.
We do, yeah. So our finalists include Merrick for 10th place. Well done, Merrick. We also have Kusaga in 9th place from South Korea. Well done. Also, Snook in 8th place. Our reigning champion, Tourist, in 7th place. Not a fantastic finish, maybe not what he was hoping for, but still very, very impressive overall. Then we have Raidwush in 6th place. And with that, all we have remaining are our top 5 contestants. Yeah, we'll figure out the particular order of these top 5 contestants in just a minute here, but you're able to see them on the screen, hopefully. We've got them in a Zoom call here, and should be able to say hello to them. So in 5th place, we have Riku, Maroon RK. Congratulations, Riku, on the excellent performance. And congratulations as well on your $1,000 grand prize. Very well done. And then in 4th place, we have Hino239. Congratulations, Hino. Well done. 4th place, coming in with a score of 42 as well, and a very solid penalty point. Total of 4 hours and 9 minutes. All right, so what we have left is our top 3 medalists. They're between Jiang Li, Umnik, and Eknerwala. We don't necessarily know who placed in which position yet. We have 2 more unrevealed submissions back on the scoreboard. We're going to head back over to that and take a look at it. So first we have Jiang Li on problem E. Does he get it? Let's see. Oh, looks like wrong answer. So that's a bit unfortunate. However, that nevertheless means that he is in 3rd place, winning a bronze medal here in the 2021 Facebook Hacker Cup. Jiang Li, how does it feel to be a 3rd place victor here? Oh, I guess maybe we don't have him on the Zoom call. Well, I can imagine it certainly feels very impressive. If I was ever able to do that, I would be incredibly happy with my performance. So congratulations on your prize money as well. All right, so back to the scoreboard. We have one submit left, one submit from Umnik. And this will determine the winner of the contest. Umnik is currently in second place. He has 52 points and about 5.5 hours of penalty points. So his penalty points at the moment are not quite as good as Andrew He's. However, if he solves problem B, he'll get another 12 points. And that'll put him up into first place. He'll win on points. So this submission determines the winner of the 2021 Facebook Hacker Cup. Here we go. Let's see. Are you excited for this, Zeph?
I'm very excited. This is as close as it's been in a long time.
Do you think I should draw out the suspense even more, or do you want to see what the result is?
I mean, I think you could draw it out a little bit. This has been pretty fun.
We could. It would be terrific. And in fact, we never talked about the problem higher flyers. So do you think now might be a good time to, while the contestants are sitting on the edge of their seats, talk about what higher flyers was about?
I mean, I'd love to hear about it.
It was a pretty cool problem. So higher flyers is a problem where we have a bunch of agents. Each agent is trying to hire people to work for their company, but the agents work for competing companies. So they're going to post these flyers on different points on a street corner. And then as one agent goes to a spot that a previous agent has been to, they'll shred that other agent's flyer. So the question is, at the end of all of this advertising, once the agents have put a bunch of flyers in a bunch of different positions, what flyers remain unshredded? There we go. That was problem C, solved only by Raidwish. Okay, back to the scoreboard. The moment you all have been waiting for. Who ends up winning? Let's take a look at the scoreboard here. We've got our one submission left from Umnik. Does he get it? Oh, no, he doesn't. Oh, man, that's unfortunate. Sorry to leave you on the edge of your seat, Umnik. But nevertheless, that is an incredibly impressive performance. Umnik in second place. Let's get a video feed of him here. The second place finisher of the 2021 Hacker Cup, the hero of 1,000 cyans, legendary grandmaster on Code Forces, very well known across all sorts of other platforms as well. The 2021 ICPC World Champion, the first place finisher in 2021 ICPC, we have Umnik. Umnik, how does it feel to get this far in Facebook Hacker Cup?
It's very unexpected for me.
It was certainly a good performance, nevertheless. So of the problems that you attempted, or at least the ones that you looked at, which one do you think was the most interesting? Do you have any ones in particular you really liked?
I think I didn't spend much time on C and E. From the ones I tried, I think B is the most interesting one. The one I didn't
cool.
solve.
Yeah, it's the wrong answer on B is very unfortunate, but it was a certainly interesting problem. Problem B, we can, I guess, bring up the quick screen of what it looks like here, since we haven't talked about it now that Umnik has mentioned it. It was about a snake inspector called Solid Snake. And he's inspecting a bunch of ladders, a snake on some ladders. He wants to climb to as many ladders as possible, but he wants to do it using the fewest jumps as possible. A fun fact about problem B, initially we thought this was going to be the second easiest problem in the set, so we actually had it a lower point value than a bunch of the other ones, but it turned out there are a lot of things that you can do to go wrong. There are a lot of ideas that seem like they might be right and get pretty far, but it turns out there's some way of breaking them. So it's a very tricky problem to get right. All right, back to you, Umnik. Any takeaways, anything you're going to practice for next year in order to get back to the finals?
I think I'll stick to my training schedule.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'm excited to see how you do next year, and I'll certainly be rooting for you.
Thanks.
So thank you very much, Umnik. Congratulations on your prize. And with that, we have a champion. Congratulations, Andrew. Well done on the first place finish. I'm sure you were sweating over there Like, oh man, is the submission going to be right? It was all out of your control. Man, how does it feel to end up being on top?
Nervous. And it had nothing to do with me either. Like, I didn't have any control.
There's nothing you can do. Yeah, it's out of your hands, man.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Andrew was in the top 3 last year for Facebook Hacker Cup. He got slightly beat out by Tourist, but he's a terrific competitor. He's been all over the place. He was from the MIT World Finalist team, a gold medalist team, second place, not the previous World Finals that Umnik was in, but the one before that. And he's just a terrific guy overall. Has done lots of very fun stuff in the competitive programming environment. So, Andrew, we've got a couple questions for you. First of all, we heard Umnik really liked problem B. Notice you didn't even submit to problem B. What do you think your favorite problem was on the set was? Were there any you really liked, any you didn't like, thought were particularly ugly?
I think A was a really cute problem, and if I knew how to solve B, I think I would like it a lot. But unfortunately, I started thinking about B, and I had some ideas. But as you said, there are a lot of ideas that like don't work in some subtle edge cases, and so all of my ideas, like I managed to prove that they just didn't work. So I feel like the actual solution has to be very pretty, but we'll find out soon enough.
It's pretty simple, yeah. It's surprisingly simple, and the fact that it works it surprised me for sure. Problem E was a somewhat annoying geometry problem. Do you spend any time thinking about that at all, or just pretend it didn't exist?
Yeah, that was actually the problem I spent most of my last hour on. You can solve it with kind of like out of the box Voronoi diagram or Delaunay triangulation, and I kind of started to do that, but I didn't really have the right book code, so maybe that's something I'll prepare before next year.
That is indeed the intended solution. In fact, there's a really neat trick you can do, which is it's like very tricky to clip the Voronoi diagram with the surrounding box that you're in. So if you do some reflection tricks, you can very neatly make the box out of the Voronoi diagram. So it's kind of a fun trick if you're interested in upsolving it.
I was still worried that if you do too many reflections, then the number of points gets really big, and I don't actually know if the runtime will be fine. So I don't know.
It's a bit tricky for sure, yeah. All right, so we've got one more question for you as well. So lots of competitors who I'm sure are watching here, they think maybe it's a little bit out of their skill level, maybe not something they're quite able to do to get to these finals. But something that I certainly wanted to do, at least when I was competing in this and not nearly as good as any of the people here are, is I wanted to get the goal of winning a t-shirt, winning a Hacker Cup t-shirt. So for all of the people out here who want to get in the top 2,000 next year and win a t-shirt, have some sort of bragging rights, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think there's, I think the simplest advice to give is like you should practice these problems. But that's a little bit like sometimes a little bit too simple. I think like, if you're really starting from nowhere and you're trying to kind of get into this, there's a lot of resources available online nowadays. A lot of people are streaming or making educational videos, and those are like really good to check out. And then there also is just, you gotta actually implement some of these problems. Like just knowing algorithms or knowing the theory is like not really good enough. And it's really helpful to just practice problems. And there are a ton of like old problems that, you can help just improve your implementation. So, I think that's the main advice I'd give.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. We really appreciate you taking the time coming on here. And also, we hope you enjoy your grand prize of $20,000. And of course, the infinite bragging rights that come along with being the 2020 Facebook Hacker Cup champion. For all of you who are watching at home, hopefully you enjoyed this. Again, if these kind of problems, if solving things like this, and very tricky logic-based problems or problems that you solve at scale are things that you find interesting, applying to Facebook is definitely a fun thing that you can do. And in the interviews, maybe you'll get your own kind of fun problems that you can solve as well. So here's a QR code. You can use that with your camera, any sort of thing that you want. Take a screenshot, whatever you want, to get this QR code and apply to work at Facebook. Well, without further ado, Zeph, you want to say goodbye to everybody and see you on the scoreboard next year?
Yeah, David, really, really nice job. Great to have you as a partner driving this. And thank you to everyone who helped produce this. There are a lot of folks behind the scenes. This is pretty tricky to make go right. And thank you most of all to all of them.